Welcome to Agile Clips, where we break down Agile into manageable pieces. In this episode, we discuss the role of the manager in an Agile environment and the difference between management and leadership.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Very good, thank you. How are you, Santosh?
I've been busy. Looks like you have been stretched thin with all your new responsibilities, huh?
Yes,
All
absolutely.
right. That keeps you out of trouble.
Right. Well, I'm not sure about that, but yes, in principle, it's a different kind of trouble.
Yeah. So, talking about trouble, and I think we have been looking at this topic about agile management and agile leadership. And I've been getting questions from different people, and I thought maybe we should talk about that because there is a kind of question all the time is like, what does an agile management look like? And what I thought was maybe we should start looking at what does the agile management do or what their primary goal is. And then we can talk about what the leadership entails.
Yes,
So,
perfect. Let's
right?
do it.
Okay. So if you have thoughts, let's start with that.
Yeah, so I mean, what I've seen from an agile management perspective is that managers really have to relinquish the idea of being in a kind of command and control mode. It's
Hmm.
all about enabling the teams to thrive. And that doesn't mean to say that when you have a self-organizing team that they necessarily know how to do it off the bat. They may need help to get there. And that obviously is normally the role of a scrum master or a coach, but managers also have a role to play in that when they talk to their employees and so on. But the key point is that they're really staying out of the way of the business of the team that's delivering, and they're more focused on sort of higher level things in the organization, whether it's managing relationships between teams, allocating people
Right.
to teams, and I'm sure we'll come back to it. But the main point is they really just have to get out of the mode of micromanagement.
Exactly. I think that's the real crux to the managing in agile environment is that they need to get out. I mean, they don't have to because there is a difference between the teams are self-organizing, but they are not self-managing. So I think the self-organizing is to say they organize themselves to get the job done, to know the value, what is stopping us, the house is basically they are working through, and manager doesn't need to be there because unless they run into trouble, so that no, so there is some outside of their control, then the manager steps in. So I think there is that distinction between managing self-managing versus self-organizing.
Good
And
point.
the manager are needed to help manage the team. And for example, there is some interpersonal issues. That's where managers need to come into picture. If there is a stakeholder relationship that needs to be managed, that's where managers come into picture. So because sometimes even the scrum master may not be able to manage the stakeholders. It needs a next level management to who can influence things. And also, one of the other things that I've seen is managers are actually working with the stakeholders to encourage them to join into this whole feedback loop so that they can see what they are getting on a regular basis so that they are not waiting till the end. So it's a almost like a relationship building in managers realm of things.
That's right. And of course, it's very difficult for managers because usually they come from a technical background And you know the expression that people rise to their level of incompetence. So often people come with a very technical background, and now suddenly they're being asked to do something rather different.
Yeah, it's like they're not managing people. And they're like, what do I do with this?
Correct. And there'll be a huge tendency to want to really dive into the technical details of what the team is doing. But that's really where they have to keep away from it and let the teams do what they have to do. And of course, they can be helped, but they should really not be told exactly what to do. The help should be more by asking the right questions to make people figure things out for themselves.
Right. And I think that's also one of the books that was, I need to go back and see which one was that. Is that, they mention this very clearly, is that, people are, they are themselves very good at the technical. They might be the best coder or designer or architect, whatever they are. And the organization is built that way that they are promoted to the manager's level. Now, all of a sudden, they have nothing, no knowledge, no experience in that. And now they're managing people. So it creates a challenge for them and for the people being managed. So it's there may be a different way of looking at it. Is the managers may not have to be technical folks. They could, the leadership could come into the picture. But that's another thought that is going on. That managers may not have to be rising within the team. There is a people manager issue, how to provide a good environment, how to provide career goals of the team members and things like that, relationships. And also the second thing that I also saw in that manager's role is strategic thinking. If they are coming from the technical background, they need to expand their thinking into the next level up, in the sense that how strategically things are being organized for intake. So what are the new things coming down the road so that your teams are ready for it? They may need some training. They may need some new tools. They may need some coaching or something of that nature, so that the team can get better or get ready for what's coming down the pipe. And that vision is coming from the management or managers. So there are a couple of things that the managers, conventional managers versus agile managers, will have to change their mindset from that point of view.
Definitely. I was just thinking about something on the previous point that we talked about, which was my father used to be a director in a English company, like a Bloomingdale's, except they also had a big food department. And I was always surprised when he would tell me, oh, this person has been moved from the men's clothing department to run cheese. And at first it seemed so strange. You'd think you would need someone running the department that knew all about cheese. But actually, no. I mean, they learned that as they went along. But the main thing is they were just very effective managers. And you had to deal with people, and you had to deal with the organization. Then you had to prioritize things and things like that. So
there may be a different set of managers might have to be there to provide that guidance or that kind of a service to the organization, so that they don't have to come through the teams. I mean, they could, but there is another aspect to it. And the other thing is, I think teams are not, they are coders, they are deliverable, they are workhorses. They sometimes are having difficulty articulating to the stakeholders as to what are they building that brings the value to them, and how is this value being generated. Either the POs can do it, or the managers could help in that whole sense, that because they should be able to translate what the teams are doing and how that fits into the bigger picture of business value. I think that's another aspect that teams struggle. And that's where managers could put some different spin to it.
Yeah, I would certainly hope that the product owner would be able to do that. But you're right, in certain situations, especially internal IT departments, things like that, often the work is, may just be infrastructure changes, all kinds of things that could be going on that are valuable to the organization and may not even be in the purview of the product owner. There can either be a side effect or just something that's being done in parallel.
Yeah, it's like, especially when we see technical stories being written. So what is that technical story doing to the bigger picture? And why do you need certain structures built or APIs written or whatever that thing is? And articulating that to the business side, even to the PO, would be a good role for manager to make sure that that gets linked so that people don't feel disconnected from both the sides of things. And the other thing is looking at I think you mentioned earlier somewhere that management needs to look at the risks and where the risks are coming from. In SAFE, they say roaming the risks, and either resolve or own or assume or delegate, or mitigate it. So that kind of aspect of every risk or any unknowns, how do you manage that? I think that's where the managers really come into picture, so that the team's comfort level of something that they don't know or they perceive that as a risk has been at least handled and disposed of, so that they know they are not going to it's not going to blow up on their face down the road. So I think that's one of the tricks that management can, or managers can do from that side of things.
Yeah, I think a lot has to do with just generally the maturity of the team. So if you have a team with very mature developers, I mean, it doesn't have to be a software development, but anyway, if you have very experienced people on the team, they can also be doing some of these things and just intuitively knowing when the team is doing something that's not efficient or making a bad decision. But there are also many cases where you have a much younger team with less experience. And it is really the managers who have the experience, even though they're not supposed to be interfering with the team, just being there and being able to answer questions like this or provide some guidance or help people to think about how they should go about doing things. Again, not command and control, not telling them do this, do that, but have you thought about this, or have you tried that before? Have you tried that before, and what happened? Do you think that was a good result? So that kind of approach can be very effective also in just growing the maturity of the team, and that's important.
Especially when you know by their experience or whatever their expertise, they can say, hey, don't go this way because it creates problems this way. Instead, this is a better option for this situation. Now, people can have different dialogue about it, but at least making team aware of those things is what they become like a consultant or a subject matter expert into that whole thing. But that brings up the next part I was talking about. What we were thinking earlier was that there is a notion of leadership, and the leadership and management are not the same. The leadership can come from anywhere. It could be from managers, but it could be within the team. There could be at certain point a different leader can surface based upon the situation. It could be an architect who can decide or leave the team saying that, oh, this is what we have to do because of enterprise architecture lays out this way, and that's why we need to go this way. So they can learn that. On the contrary, there could be a star developer that can be the lead for a certain period of time because you have to have certain style of development and the code writing and testing and those kind of things. So, in that book that I was mentioning, they said something about empty chair team, where that empty chair can be occupied by different people based on the activity or the circumstances that the team is working on, and that could be the leader. And that is where subject matter experts or experience or innovation or whatever that is, That's where the leadership comes in. And that's why people assume that managers are the leaders. Well, they could be, but they are not the only leaders. So I think that's the distinction that I've seen happening at multiple levels, and even at product owner or chief product owner, or even the intake level, we see that uh, different leaders come in at different time of the intake process, or even when the strategic planning is being done. So leaders can be anywhere.
I actually think that's one of the manager's roles, is to help everybody in the team be a leader in their own right.
Correct. And recognizing that there is a leadership here and somebody has capacity or capability to lead, and encourage them to get there. So I think that's the other aspect of it.
I heard recently an expression that a leader is someone who causes a future to happen that would have not otherwise happened.
Wow, yeah, that's great. I never heard that before. That makes sense. That really makes sense.
So that's where I kind of feel that, at least traditionally in a waterfall environment, the manager wouldn't be necessarily the person who had the ideas or was the leader, but they would definitely be helping on the execution side to try and go from a vision to make something happen. But again, in the Agile world, it's really up to the team, and the manager should be doing everything possible just to enable the team and not be necessarily involved in the day-to-day business
That's true.
basis.
That is true. And I think that's the other part, is the ideas or the innovation comes from the bottom up, because the people who are actually delivering know what it takes to get certain things done, instead of just when there are ideas coming from the business side, but actually how to get that done and what it would be a better way of doing it, or once they understand what the intent of what they are doing is, then they can go about at a much practical or pragmatic way. So the leaders really the thought leaders, as we call it, come from the organically with the teams, and we have seen this happening quite a few times. When I was in India, there was this team. This person was coming out of school, and they were struggling, and all of a sudden he came up with he looked at the database structure, and he was like, why are we doing this? Why can't we just take a small section of this and build the tables around that? And everyone was looking at each other and like, wow, how come we never thought of that? But it is really thinking out of the box and thinking on a creative way of looking at it. And he led that effort, got it done. I thought that was pretty interesting to see somebody who had never been into this environment coming up with the new ideas.
Yeah, actually, sometimes it's people who come from the outside who can be more creative.
Correct.
Just because they're coming at it with fresh eyes and don't have preconceived notions.
Right, and they don't have a bias against certain things.
Correct. But a lot of this discussion is really reminding me of the book Turn the Ship Around by David Marquet.
Oh, yes.
And I think it's really well worth encouraging our listeners to go and pick up that book. It's a wonderful book.
Yeah. I think he was here in the Bay Area about 3 years back when he had just released that book. And some of the things that he showed as to how to motivate the team, how leaders or managers were motivating the team by creating, making their work visible. And that was like, he took the worst performing submarine to the best performing submarine.
It's actually the tagline of the title is a true story of turning followers into leaders.
Exactly.
So very much in line with what we were saying.
Yeah. And I think that's where the Agile managers really shine, in the sense they recognize it, and that's where the true quality of the Agile manager looks like.
Yeah, and I've definitely had worked with managers in the past. A couple of them really come to mind who, looking back, I think they were just enlightened individuals. They really understood this whole idea of being there to encourage people and give them the freedom and grow them from a career perspective, but really staying out of the technical decisions, which they were amply able to provide that kind of guidance, but they were really making an effort not to do it so the team could grow.
It was interesting. I was at one client where the product owner used to be a developer and he had moved to the product ownership side. And when we were, there was the first time he was going into that, and he had so much desire to get into the house of things. So I had to almost pull him back all the time, like, just stick to what and why. Don't go into house. And the only time when he actually jumped in was people were stuck and arguing and all that. And then finally he said, well, I'm the product owner. Let's make this go this way first. And you will see why I'm doing this. So it was, I thought, you would make a good manager. Don't even go into product ownership. Go into the management. So I think after 2 years he left and started his own company, looks like. But
yeah, the other thing about these two managers, which I thought was wonderful, was they were really forgiving of any errors that were made within the teams. I don't want to say their necks were on the line, but they kind of were. One of them was the leader of the engineering organization in a business unit, significant business unit. And if the team really screwed up, he never blamed anybody. He just worked with the team to say, okay, I think we need to have a process for doing this. We should do that. Please alert me if things are going wrong well in advance, things like that. But it was just totally blameless organization, and people really thrived in it.
Yeah, and I think it's more of what did we learn from this mistake? If the managers can start focusing as to what we learn and don't, anybody can make a mistake, but giving that air cover and making the environment safe to the team, then the team flourishes. And that's a big mindset change to any conventional managers, kind of a management style, I guess. And then it takes time. It takes self-discipline.
Yeah, and actually that's even, I would say, another role of the Agile manager is, especially during this transition from a waterfall approach to, say, Scrum, their role includes talking to their superiors and forewarning them that there could be challenges ahead. So initially we'll get less done because the team is going through this transitional period. But when we come out at the other end, things will be much, much better.
Beginning of this adoption, always there is a trough. The productivity goes down, people are learning, and then it starts coming up. And providing that visibility and encouragement to the superiors is the really skill set for the managers. As they say, now the managers should stop managing below. They should manage up instead of manage down. Because really, that's where the real skill comes in, is how you manage your own manager. And that's where the management team needs to come from, that side of things. Well, I think we got some good discussion points here. Awesome.
This was fun.
Yeah, it is.
It's a very, very interesting
discussion, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic because we see all the things that people do incorrectly and the ones who do it really well. And so to be able to talk about that and kind of share our experiences is pretty cool.
Awesome. Cool.
Great. Right. Thanks, Santosh.
Talk to you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.